you think? I look just like that guy, don't I? I think that's actually a picture of me. That's awesome.
Join the team.
Okay, here in setup, step number 6, the player with the longest beard will be the starting player. Yep, I love this game. Hey team, this is the McGuire review, and we're going to take a look at a brand new one from Go On Board and Łukasz Wozniak called Valhalla. So let's lock in and get ready to go. Alright team, we got a special one today. This is one I've been looking forward to for a while. We got it on the channel. We do have the prototype here. We will talk more about everything that we got on the table because this is essentially a production version of this game because it already has been funded in Poland. They did a Polish Kickstarter for this game and it was delivered to backers, and now they're going to bring it to Kickstarter and do a US release in an English print, which is going to be really fun, really cool. And that Kickstarter is going to be starting on October the 18th. You will find a link in the description of the video below once it goes live, and you'll be able to get in on that Kickstarter and check out everything that it's going to have. Now, we do have on the table pretty much most of what you're going to find with this Kickstarter. There are all of the Kickstarter expansions that came with the first print, as well as some extra goodies here. And we're going to go through all this so you know what it is, you know what you're getting, and you can see the quality of what you got. Bear's going to load up some overhead videos as we go through some of this. But again, you really know what you're getting with this game because it pretty much already is in production form. So again, Valhalla is from Łukasz Wozniak, and the name of the company is Go On Board. You can see here the box, awesome artwork on the front there, and then some artwork there on the back showing kind of the layout of the game and what it's going to look like when you're actually playing the game. All right, so we'll put that right down over here. Bear, you can hold that. Thank you. And then this here is kind of a little thing that was added in, I think, just for reviewers. I don't think you're going to see this included with your game because it is kind of a custom sort of homemade thing, and it just kind of cues up the game, gives you kind of a feel for the game before you start to play, and I think it was done pretty creatively, done pretty well. Kind of the edges are burnt and used some fake, splattered blood on there with the writing. I will read this for you. It says, "That's it for me. I fought my last fight and I've shed my last drop of blood. Now it's your time. It's time for your fight. So pick up your sword and axe and fight. Fight to the very last breath. Fight to die in glory. Fight and join me in Valhalla." And that's what's so cool about this game is as you're playing with your warriors and your characters and you're going into battle and the various different things you can do while you're playing the game, essentially the goal of the game is to get as many warriors as you can through glorious battle against other players, or this game does offer a solo mode as well. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But it's to get through the game with the most warriors entering that Valhalla, and also the shields that are in the game. You'll find these shields right up front. Each player will get shields that will match their selected clan. Depending on how many shields you have and how many players there are, having your own shields as well as collecting other shields will provide victory points as well. And that'll be added on to your Valhalla victory points for each one of your warriors that have gone to Valhalla based on their glorious battle. So let's hit a couple of the components here that we got on the table. This is the awesome player mat that was provided in my copy, and this is a special Kickstarter run add-on kind of expansion that happened, and it is just really awesome. It's got a really cool artwork of a Valkyrie there on it. It's very awesome looking. It's got a really nice feel and finish to it. Looks really good. So I thought this was pretty cool. That was added in. Warrior and battle tactics cards, and these are going to be basically the main cards of the game that you're going to be using. It's going to be out in front of you. This is the deck that's going to get modified from the very beginning of the game. You are going to take a certain number of these cards off depending on how many players are playing the game, because one of the end game conditions is that this deck runs out. So to help control the timing on that, there are a certain number of these cards that will be taken off if you are playing with a certain number of players. So with a 3-player game, you'll actually take 20 of these cards out of this deck. So again, you can solo this game. It is a 2 to 6 player game with a solo variant. There are actually quite a few different variants for this title. It's 13 plus and it is 30 to 60 minutes. So you can get a pretty quick game in with this title, and it can go upwards to an hour as well, depending on, you know, the skill level of players, and what's kind of happening during the actual gameplay. So here's your main deck of cards, and these do have various things on them. We'll go over what these cards mean here just in a minute. Here are your Jarl cards, which are essentially going to be the heroes within the game that you're going to play as a character. And they do have various different abilities. Each one is completely different. We'll look at these two right here. You'll see they'll essentially follow the same layout. You'll have a little symbol that'll be right up here that will basically indicate if it's a kind of a general card that can be used for any type of game, or some of them have 3+, so if you have 3 or more players in the game, that's a card that you'll want to have in the deck, or if you only have 2 players, you'll want to take that card out. And then they'll all follow this. Top here is the ability that this Jarl that you're going to be, that is going to be the ability for that character. And then there will be a bottom secondary ability as well, and that can only be activated if the text in red is accomplished. And the only other difference is some of the cards will have this plus symbol, and some of the cards will have kind of this double arrow symbol. That essentially means that you can use those two abilities together. They stack, you can use them together. Sometimes you can't for some of them. It's one or the other. And that's as complex as these cards get. It's very, very simple, and I'll say that across the board for this game. It's a very, very straightforward, very simple game. I think it's got some really good mechanics in the way that it plays out. I think it's executed fairly elegantly, but it is a very simple game, and I do want that to be clear. There isn't a lot of complexity in this title. You are essentially going into combat with other players, or you're going into combat with a larger beast from the solo perspective. You're battling, various different larger beasts. But when you're playing with multiplayer, it is essentially a card combat game. You are rolling dice. You're going to get to roll dice on your turn, and depending on the symbols that you come up with, you kind of have to match those symbols to the symbols that are on your warrior cards to determine if you're able to activate that warrior. And then it's basically warriors versus warriors, highest strength wins, and based on the outcome of that, whether you're the attacker or the defender, there's a few different things that are going to happen from the perspective of taking other players' shields and or warriors going to Valhalla, and how that will work. And that is essentially the game. Again, the game will end when the deck runs out, or one player loses all of their clan's shields. Again, you'll start the game with those 4 shields on your player board. We'll take a look at that here in a second. And if one player loses all of their shields, that would end the game as well, or that player would be eliminated. But back to these cards here, that's essentially how they're going to work. Very simple, very straightforward. I do really like the artwork on these cards. They're really cool. I like the artwork throughout the whole game. It kind of has a little bit of, I don't want to say, it is kind of that watercolor type style, but it's a really tight watercolor type style. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a super, defined inked style. It does kind of have a little bit of that watercolor feel. And I really like that. I think it goes well with the theme of the game. Just this rich Norse mythology that's built into this game. That's one reason why I really like the game as well. I think it's very thematic. And I think the game plays out from a theme perspective very well. Shields, again, we've kind of already gone over that. Each player is going to get their 4 shields. We got dice, and there are quite a few dice here, and you'll see a big pile of dice here as well. This was an add-on for the Kickstarter as well, where every player will get their own color of dice. That's why you got a big pile here. But they do offer quite a few in the base game, and really all you need are the main 6 dice. And you can use the black or the red, or if you're playing a 2-player, each player can kind of have their own set of dice. But every time it's your turn, you are only going to use one set of 6 dice. If you're the attacker and if you're the defender, you'll use one set of 6 dice. These 3 extra white dice are extra dice in the pool that anybody can actually use within an interaction. And it's interesting the way that mechanic works. Because as the attacker, let's say you're an attacker in a battle, you may have cards and or abilities that start to allow you to use these extra white dice and eliminate those from the pool. They're not reusable, so you can actually use those up before the defender has a chance to actually get in on some of those dice as well. So that's something you're going to want to balance when you go into combat. And I like that mechanic. I like that extra little pool of dice that's sort of sitting out there, luring players in of, well, how do you strategically play your cards to maybe use up this dice pool before your defender or your opponent has a chance to maybe get in on that dice pool as well, especially if you're the attacker. There are a couple cards in the game that will go over the point system, so depending on how many players are playing, and it does indicate that right at the top of this card, just has a little symbol with little meeple symbols, and then you'll just look at this card and it will show you how the points will work here, where it shows you each one of the cards is worth whatever victory points they are. Your shield's 0, other players' shields are 2 points. That's with 2 players. Now, as you increase the number of players, that will change on this card. Things will be worth different points, and it will also add in different levels of things that will be worth points. So you'll want to make sure you pay attention to that, because if you play this game all the time as a 2-player interaction, that's going to change a little bit if you're playing with 3, 4, 5, or 6 players. So you want to make sure you pay attention to this card and see what's really worth the points over the course of the game when the game ends, because it will slightly change a little bit. And I like that balance to the game. It adds a few extra little things in there you got to pay attention to when there's more players. You are going to have your reference card here. It's just going to go over your different actions in the game that you can take. And that's everything in the game as far as the base components that make up this game is what you're going to see right here. Everything that's over here is considered an expansion or an add-on to the game. We're going to go through every one of these things. But let's go a little bit into what actual gameplay looks like and how that would play out. So this is your player board that you're going to have. And there are 6 of them, and each player will get a different player board, and each one of these boards do have different artwork on them, which I thought was pretty cool. They went the extent of customizing each one of the boards, which is something we kind of standard see in the industry today, but it's nice that they went this route, didn't just put a generic artwork on each one. So that's pretty cool. I don't know, this one here is a favorite, and I really like this one as well. This may be my favorite out of all of them. I just think this one's really cool. So each player is going to get one of these player boards. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have your 120 card deck. You're going to shuffle this all up, and you're going to remove a set number of cards depending on how many players. So again, 3 players, we remove 20 of these cards. So let's just say this is 20 cards. We'll take these off, and we will put them in the discard pile for the game. Then each player will get one of these player boards, and they will also get their 4 shields. And let's just say that I went with the blue here, so I'd go through and I would get all of my blue shields, my 4 blue shields. That's going to be my chosen clan. Put them on my board here, and each player is going to do that. We're then going to get dealt 3 of these Jarl cards, and let's just say I got these 3 right here, and each player is going to get dealt 3 of these. I'm going to look at these, and I'm going to determine who I want to be. Ooh, you know what? I'm going to be this guy right here, Trendil. He looks pretty cool. It says once per battle, you may flip 1 shield in your pool to any chosen side. Interesting. What the hell does that mean? Now, this one has a plus symbol, so it's something that can stack. However, the red text tells me what I have to do to be able to get that bottom ability. It says if you don't use any battle tactic cards in that battle, so the battle that we chose to flip our shield to any other shield, you may discard 1 shield and discard 2 dice from your opponent's set. That ability can only be activated while you attack. So it's only if I'm attacking someone else, not defending against someone else's attack. So let's say, I'll go with this guy here, and go ahead and put that kind of right there on your card. There's a little icon there to indicate you can put that right there. And right here is going to be where cards go that go to the Valhalla area, and then your warriors are going to go right up here, and other folks' shields that you collect are going to go right here on the board. All right? That's how that's going to work. You are then going to indicate who is the first player. Player with the longest beard gets to be the first player. There we go, Bear. That's right. I'm the player with the longest beard at this point. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put out a number of warrior cards. They're going to be the number of players plus 1. So let's say we're playing a 3-player game. We'll put out 4 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. We got 4 warriors now out on the table. Let's move these around because we would be done with these cards after we, everybody gets their Jarl there, and we've already done this. So we got our 4 cards that are out in front of us, and now we're going to go around the table. It's to the left of the first person. They get to go first. First player will actually select last. And what's going to happen is they're going to go around and they're going to pick one of these warriors, and they're going to put it right into their warrior mat. Now, again, you can't have any more than 4 at a time. And then the next person's going to pick one and put it in their warrior mat, and so on and so forth. Last player is going to get to pick between 2. That's how many players that you have plus 1. So that last player will have 2 cards that they'll be able to pick between. All right? And then what's going to happen is everyone's going to be dealt 7 cards. And you're going to do something very similar. You're going to get 7 of these cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Every player is going to get that. You're going to look at your hand of cards and you're going to say, okay, which 5 do I want to keep? You're going to discard 2 of them. We'll say we discard these 2. And those 2 go to the discard pile. Each player is going to do that. And now you have your hand of warrior cards. And this is going to be essentially your hand for the game. They're going to be using to either take those actions of putting warriors into your board or putting 2 warriors into your board if they don't have a lot of weapons, and being able to attack with those warriors that are out on your board. And now you're ready to start the game. Bear, why don't you load up some overhead video, and we're going to go through some of these cards. You can take a look at some of the components that are on the table. But if we look at our warrior cards here, and I'm just going to show you the ones that I ended up keeping from my 5, and then obviously I have 1 here on my board. And you'll notice that each one of these cards, again, very simple. And you'll see right at the top here is going to show you their strength, their attack power, as well as their clan color. So this is a clan color of green, has a strength of 6. It also shows here how many weapons this particular warrior needs to be activated to be able to go into battle. And it's quite a few here for this warrior. He's going to need a bow, a spear, and a shield. He's going to need all 4 of those rolled on dice. When it is your turn and you want to attack or defend, you're going to have to roll dice and say, okay, now based on all the warriors that I have out here, how can I place these to activate the most possible warriors to get the highest number of strength against another player? And that's essentially the main mechanic of this game. And then here at the bottom, you're going to have the glory points that you would get for this warrior as they enter Valhalla and counted for you as a player at the end of the game. And for this guy, it would be 4, which is pretty high because he's a fairly big, heavy hitter here with 6 on the strength. So that's how these cards are going to work. And we'll take a look at this card as well because this one you'll see is very similar, but it does have an extra little thing right here. Some cards will have abilities as well. And if it's a red little meeple colored person, it means your opponent if you're being attacked. And if it's just a solid black colored, that means that it's you as the player's ability. And it will just tell you, like, minus dice, max of 1, or there's different things in the game. It's very simple to read the iconography they have there and what that actually means. You'll find that in the rulebook as well, all the different types. There's only a few different things that are available within the base game as far as like taking dice away, acting as somewhat of a shield. There's different things in the game that you can have in these abilities. And that's what you'll find on these cards. And that's really as complex as these cards get as well. Very, very simple from that perspective. And that's one thing that I do like. When I first started to play the game and I got it out of the box, I thought, you know what? Is it, in fact, a little too simple as far as the mechanics that are involved in this title? Just to be critical from a reviewer's perspective. And although it is incredibly simple and the mechanics are pretty straightforward, I do like that because there is a lot of thought and strategy in when you attack, When you put warriors into your battlefronts here, the types of warriors and the combos that you go after in putting warriors into the battlefront. And you'll see that even more when we get into some of these expansions. Some of these expansions really drill that concept of playing that combo and getting that combo or getting that really powerful hit. And there is a balance of how you do that. And I find that games that have that type of strategy over the course of playing the game, mixed with a ton of complex combat rules and card mechanics, sometimes you can kind of get lost in all of that and you lose a lot of the fun. Where this one is something that you can sit down with about anybody. My kids can play this game. You can sit down with about anybody and actually just roll dice and play games. But it's also designed on a level where if you really know what you're doing, it becomes much more than just rolling dice and matching symbols on cards. You really are putting a lot of thought and strategy in when you're playing those cards and how you're attacking players around the table. It's not just, hey, I'm going to attack you every single time it's my turn. You are really going to be balancing and thinking through that. Okay, so that's how the cards are going to work. Now let's talk a little bit more in depth about these actions. So when it's your turn and you have these cards in your hand, you can decide to just say, you know what, I'm going to take a card in my hand and I'm going to get it right out in the battlefront. Let's say I wanted to do that. And he has more than 3, so I can only put one card out if it has more than 3. So let's say I wanted to put him out. Or let's say I wanted to put out more than one warrior. Well, those 2 warriors together can't exceed 3 weapons together. Well, I don't actually have any cards here where I can do that because this guy has 2, this guy has 2, 3, 5. So I can't do that. I'd have to find cards, or I'd have to have cards in my hand. Oh, here we go. Here's one. So this guy only takes like 1 weapon. And this guy only takes 1 weapon. So let's say I had these 2 in my hand. This guy takes an axe. This guy takes a sword. I could play both of those in my battlement because their combined weapons are less than or equal to 3. So that's how that would work if I wanted to do that as an action. Kind of a way to just get a bunch of quick warriors out into your battlefronts. Maybe if it's an early game, I would say that's more of an early game move or mechanic to just quickly get quite a few warriors out on your board if you happen to get those types in your hand. I did not, however. I got some fairly beefier type warriors, which is going to be good. That's really going to play out for me. I'm going to have good, strong defenses. Or you can attack another player. So if you do have at least one warrior out on your board, you can choose another player. Whoops. So if you do have at least one warrior on your board, you can choose another player around the table to directly attack, and then you're going to go into combat. We'll talk about that here in a second, what that looks like. Or you can select 2 cards off the deck, and then you can keep one of them in your hand and discard the other one. And then you're going to go into phase B of your turn when you're done with your action. You're going to end your turn by drawing 2 cards and keeping one of them and putting it in your hand, discarding the other. You could have a nice warrior base built up and decide, you know what, I'm just going to take one of those turns where I just get some cards in my hand and try to beef up the warriors that are in my hand that I might have to be used. Just gives you more option. So you could take your action, because that's one of the actions you can take in phase A, to draw 2, keep 1, and then you can end your turn with draw 2, keep 1, effectively gaining 2 new cards into your hand over the course of that turn. So that's something else that you can do. That's all the actions. Those are all the things you're going to do. We'll talk about combat. Combat is very simple. Let's say I wanted to attack another player. First, the players would decide any cards they had in hand. There are cards in this deck that will be a little bit different than a warrior card. It'll be a card that looks something like this here, which will give you kind of an ability. It says if you discard 1 die from your pool, add 3 to your strength. And it just kind of tells you there, a little icon up top, what this card does, but then it writes it right at the bottom exactly what it is. You don't really have to worry as much about that. You can just kind of read right here. So these are different types of battle cards that you can get. This one here, you may change all dice with X symbol to any chosen symbol. These are cards you can play on your turn when you attack. or you defend. Some of these cards are going to say before battle. So if the players have any of those cards, they can play those if they so choose to do so before a battle to help on that defense and or the attack. Then the attacker is going to roll these 6 dice. They're going to choose 6 dice, either the red or the black, it doesn't matter. And they're going to look at all these symbols, and anything that comes up with this X here is something that can be re-rolled. But they're going to look at all these symbols, and they're going to determine now what they need to activate their warriors. So again, if we had this guy on the board here, we're going to start going through, and well, let's just say let's just make it easy. We say we had these 2 warriors here because they all have a spot here for a weapon. We're going to start grabbing these and saying, all right, she needs a bow, a spear, and a shield. Well, we've got a bow, and we've got a spear, and we've got a shield. So there's 3 things that we need so we can get her activated. So she's activated and ready for battle, and she's worth 5. That's a 5 strength, really good. This guy needs 2 more bows, a spear, and a shield. Well, we don't have that, and we don't have enough dice left to even be able to accomplish that. So we would need some type of card in our hand, and we don't have that right now. That would allow us to get into more of these dice. Now let's say, for instance, that we didn't get anything that worked to activate either one of these warriors. You do have the ability to re-roll dice, as many or as less as you want. But every time you do that re-roll, you have to get rid of a dice from your pool. Kind of that standard mechanic in re-rolling of dice in most games. So let's say we wanted to re-roll. We would say, all right, we're going to take this die and throw it out, and we're going to re-roll all of them. Because it doesn't really matter. We're re-rolling all of our dice, and we re-roll them all, and this is what we get now. Well, you can continue to do that as many times as you would like. Let's say if there's only certain symbols that you really need for one card and you want to get one card activated, you can continue to re-roll into your heart's content, but you are going to lose a die on every one of those re-rolls from your pool. Then at that point, you can add in any cards in your hand that help you for that combat, whether you're the defender or the attacker, and then you're going to have a final strength value. The defender is going to do the same thing. They're going to roll those dice, they're going to activate warriors, and they're going to try to get a strength value that is higher than what you have in trying to attack them. Now, if you're able to attack them, have a higher strength value, all of your warriors that were active in that battle will then go into Valhalla, into the glory of Valhalla, and they'll get put in this spot, and you'll get those victory points there at the end of the game. If you're the defender, and I'm just going to talk about how the warriors work. If you're the defender, you actually get to choose. So let's say you're the defender and you were to win that battle, successfully defend. You then would be able to choose which warriors went to Valhalla and which did not, regardless of which ones were in the battle and activated. Only because then that player doesn't have to just wipe their warriors because they may not have been ready to attack with those warriors. So they get to choose who goes to Valhalla and who does not. If you're the attacker, everybody that's involved goes to Valhalla because you decided to go in and attack those warriors. If you won, go to Valhalla. If you do not win, the warriors will stay on the board, hung head in shame as they cannot really enter Valhalla because they weren't victorious in the glory of battle. So they will stay on your board with their head hung in shame and fight another day. And that's how that works there when it gets to combat. So combat is really that simple. You're essentially rolling dice, matching symbols on cards, comparing strength, adding cards to that to help offset your strength, and make you victorious in battle. I will say that cards can only be played when it's your turn, your action there. When you're all done and then you've determined your strength value, no more cards can be played. It is now the defender's turn to do their thing. You can't see what they're going to do and then decide, oh, well, I'm going to play this card then on top of that to continue to outdo your strength. Because again, you may have some cards in your hand you want to hang on to and not go all in on a battle. You just think you might win with maybe one extra, battle card to help kind of tip your strength if you get good symbols to be able to use your warriors. But that's an important thing to understand. You can't just continue to add cards. Once you're you're done, you've got your strength value, you're done. It's now the defender's turn. They can go through their stuff. And that's going to go round and round until you either run out of this deck, which is going to end the game, or you have taken all the shields away from another player. There is one extra thing that you're going to do at the very end. of the game after the game comes to an end, and it's called the Ragnarok phase. And essentially, it's one last sort of phase for each player to get some more points and some more warriors to go to Valhalla. And what it's going to be is essentially it's going to get to your turn, you're going to go around the table, you're going to shake those 6 dice, and you're going to go one last extra activation. Now, you're not fighting anything, you're just trying to get a number of these warriors activated. And as many as you possibly can. And then whatever warriors you're able to get activated, you're going to go ahead and take those off the board, remove them, put them into Valhalla. And it's just kind of one last ditch kind of effort to be able to have every player be able to get more warriors off their board into Valhalla. Now, from a gameplay perspective, that can help a trailing character. So if the game is close and you go into Ragnarok, it's sort of one of those random chance kind of things at the end of the game where if you are trailing in points but maybe not by that far, and you do get a phenomenal roll there at the end with your 6 die and you're able to activate some more warriors, and maybe this is where I think strategy-wise, if you know the end of the game is coming, try to get warriors out of your board. And then go with that action where you can put 2 warriors in that are very low, that require minimum amount of weapons. Because it's a way to get maybe a few out on the board. Maybe you can fill up your whole board or get 3 of those types out there over a couple turns. And then you can end the game with that Ragnarok, roll those dice, and then be able to activate all those warriors and get them all off into Valhalla. I mean, I guess you could go with maybe getting one that's worth more victory points, but it's just a way to be able to maybe get more warriors into your Valhalla pile there at the end when you do Ragnarok. So, again, different strategies of how to play the game, but it's all about those points and those shields that you acquire over the course of the game that's going to give you that win. So let's get into the stretch goals now, because we've pretty much exhausted the gameplay. Even with its simplicity, I wanted to go through what you really do in game and what all those mechanics look like, because I don't want you to look at this game and look at this Kickstarter and just say, okay, this looks cool, but is there any substance that's actually here, right? Like, what is this game? Because it seems like we're just rolling die, we're matching symbols, and okay, my strength's greater than yours, I win. And it is more than that. Okay, those are the base mechanics in the game, but the game is richer than that, and it is more than that. And when you play, there is a lot of strategy that goes back and forth in how those cards lay down on the board and they interact with other players. So I wanted to really go through all the conversation that we've had so far. Well, it's not really a conversation, I guess, between me and Bear. It's kind of one way, but I wanted to extensively go through all of that stuff so you really clearly know what you're getting. All right, so let's hit the expansions that we have here, because these add a whole nother aspect and flavor to the game. It makes the base game more complex, and it adds more rules and more things. So right up here, we have the Dwarf expansion, which I really like. And those expansions, in each expansion, you'll see there's a little tiny symbol at the top of these cards that will show the expansion and which cards are involved in that expansion. This is the Dwarf. Really cool. This is going to be more about those big punches over the course of the game. These are very powerful cards. They've got some really cool abilities on them and awesome artwork. I love the Dwarf expansion. It's probably my favorite to add into the game, and you are generally going to only use one of these expansions at a time when you're playing. You're essentially going to shuffle that deck into your main deck there at the beginning. And if you are, again, using these 40 card plus expansions, there is a little bit of a rule modification when you're drawing cards. Instead of 2, you're going to be drawing 3 on your turn. Again, just a mechanic to kind of burn through the deck at a relatively good pace when you add in more cards. So that's the Dwarf expansion. There's going to be the Valkyrie expansion. Again, another 40 card expansion. This one's all about combos, and this one's really cool. As you get these out here, these cards are going to have abilities at the bottom, and these warriors are going to play off of one another depending on the different type of clan colors that you have. Because again, all your warriors are not the same. Like, this is your clan color, your quote-unquote clan color for you as a player. my blue that I have here. However, as you put warriors out on the board, those are going to be in different types of colors. You'll see here we've got a red. This one's green. This one's like a lighter colored red. We've got a yellow here, and depending on what types you have out, you're going to be able to combo against one another, and that's pretty cool. This is probably a little bit of a more advanced deck, and just being able to know all those combos and execute all of that. We're then going to have some extra cards for any of the expansions, like the Fire Giant that uses glory points, as well as the Valkyrie expansion. That's all. These are going to be here. This is going to be the Fire Giants expansion, much like our Valkyrie and Dwarf expansion, just another type of expansion with some different types of warriors and abilities and things you're going to have there. This one's really cool. This one is the Thor's Might expansion, which is pretty awesome. These cards are going to get shuffled into your main deck as well if you want to use that. And these are like really powerful cards. So if you're able to get one of these cards and get it in your hand, I like playing with this expansion. It just gives you like this big punch, this big powerful ability. Like this one here says, supported player gets an additional die. Let's see another one here. Supported player draws one card before the battle. Supported player gets one free reroll in the battle. And it's worth 3 victory points if it's utilized. So this just gives you kind of an extra punch, just sort of a cool thing to get as you're drawing through the deck. We're going to jump right over here, work around, and then I'll talk about this one last because it probably is our largest expansion that comes with this board here. It's Odin's expansion. It's pretty sweet. This one is Loki's Deception expansion, and you can think of this expansion much like an offset for a player. So let's say you're playing with brand new players or another player, and that player, doesn't really understand the rules. Maybe they're just not very good at these type of games. You can use Loki's Deception, and this will kind of give other players an offset. So essentially what it does is it looks at the strength difference in battles and says bonus for losing players. So whoever loses that battle, there's a strength difference, and it will give a little, action that will happen. So if the strength difference is between 0 and 1, send each of your activated warriors to Valhalla. If it's between 2 and 3, send one of your activated warriors to Valhalla. If it's between 4 and 5, take at random one card from your opponent. So it just kind of offsets a little bit of the rule set for the losing player within combat, and that's all Loki's Deception does. It's a nice little mechanic to add in if you do have players that are new, or if you have players that are advanced and you just want to have a little bit of a mix-up for the losing player, you can put that in there as well. I will say, I just read the top card there. These cards are different. Each one of them are different, so you will choose one of them to play for the game, and those cards are different. Here what we've got are some blank Jarl cards as well as some blank warrior cards here that you can use to maybe create your own. So there's some blank cards that we have here. This is going to be for the solo mode. So if you go into a solo mode of the game where there are some rule changes because you are essentially playing by yourself and battling one of these large beasts. And these cards are different depending on how you set up your solo mode game and what expansions you might use in that game. So there are different sides of these cards, and this is just an example. There will be multiple different types of mythical beasts that you'll be able to fight. This is a dinosaur-sized dire wolf here. Again, there'll be different ones of these that'll be released through the Kickstarter, so look for that. We do have the King of the Hill expansion right up here, and it does come with an awesome little miniature here, which is super high quality. I thought this was very, very cool. The King of the Hill miniature. You can take a look at that. You'll see it close up as well on the overhead. King of the Hill is basically an expansion where as you fight and you win battles, you will become the quote-unquote King of the Hill, and whoever is the King of the Hill gets a little bit of an added bonus by being the King of the Hill. So that's how that expansion works. There are extra Jarl cards that are involved in an expansion as well that was from the first round. They will come with the base part of the Kickstarter Actually, most all of this here will. We got 7 new Jarls there that you can get in the game. This one here is Brother in Arms. This is one where, let's say you're playing with 4 players around the table, you can actually have alliances as you're playing. So instead of just you're always on attack or defense, you can actually go into alliance with another player around the table, and that gets into a lot of fun, especially when you have, 4 to 6 players, and you might have a weak battlefront. You go into alliance with someone for one reason or the other. Maybe you have something that can help them out, or they can help you out. That's what the Brother in Arms card's for, and it really is just some cards with the shield symbols on them, and you can pass them around so you're kind of matched up with the same color of shield, and you'll be able to go into an alliance with another player. That's pretty awesome. We already talked about you do get some extra dice as well from that first Kickstarter that will be included here in the second one. That just allows each player to have their own set and color of dice. And then the last expansion that we have here is the Odin's expansion, where you will get this board here, and you'll be putting Odin's cards out on the board that do give extra abilities that can add on to your Jarl and do some extra things for you. So you will be able to draw those cards over the course of your turn if you're using this expansion. And it really is that simple. You just have this board out, you have these cards, and they are available to the players to draw on your turn, and extra abilities you can kind of add on to your main Jarl. And that is the entire game. That is everything that is in Valhalla. There is a little book right here that does go over some of the Kickstarter expansions that we just talked about, and gives in depth. So you will receive one of these as well, a little booklet that will explain each one of those expansions and how to integrate and use those expansions and how they can be used together. But that is Valhalla. I'll tell you, team, I think it's an awesome game. I love the theme. I love the simplicity of it. And the game really becomes having fun and not being so bogged down in tons of rules as you're trying to play the game, and constantly rule checks of what does this symbol mean and how does this card work with this card. Everything is right on the cards. It's very, very simple, and a wide range of folks can play this game. All the way from a novice in this type of game style to someone that would be very advanced or skilled in this type of game style. So that's Valhalla. I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you're interested in this game. If you are, go check out the Kickstarter. Again, October the 18th is when it goes live, and we will have a link in the description of the video below. So hit that like, click the subscribe to join the team. Keep rolling them crits. This has been the McGuire Review, and we'll see you next time. Bear, let's go!